A boxer decided to show off his punches on a royal guard, but his joke turned into a nightmare. What happened next will shock you.
Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's promote respect for the Royal Guard together. Let the whole world see how many of us there are.
London was slowly waking up. The soft rays of the morning sun broke through a light mist, illuminating the grandeur of Buckingham Palace. At its iconic golden gates, a crowd of tourists had gathered as usual. Cameras clicked non-stop, children laughed, and adults looked on in awe at the motionless royal guards. These men in bright red uniforms and tall bearskin hats stood as symbols of honor and tradition, inspiring both admiration and respect. Amidst the sea of people stood a man in a black t-shirt with the words, "No Mercy," boldly printed across the front. His name was Vince Carter. At 35, Vince was someone you couldn't miss. Broad-shouldered and imposing, his sharp features, closely cropped blonde hair, and arms marked with scars from countless fights made him stand out. A former professional boxer, Vince had recently retired from the sport but carried himself with the same dominating energy that had once defined his career. His confidence was almost palpable, and his dark sunglasses hid eyes that seemed to constantly seek a new target. Vince stood at the railing, arms crossed over his chest, and fixed his gaze on one of the guards. The soldier was Adam Hunt, a 27-year-old Royal Guard. Adam was lean, disciplined, and exuded the quiet strength of someone well accustomed to routine and precision. His perfect posture, focused stare, and calm demeanor reflected years of rigorous training. The bright red of his tunic gleamed under the sun, and his tall bearskin hat completed the image of a flawless royal guardian. Vince smirked and turned to his two friends, who appeared far less confident than he did. "Look at them," he said loudly enough for the entire crowd to hear. "Are these supposed to be real defenders? Do they even know what a punch feels like?" His friends exchanged uneasy glances, trying to rein him in. "Vince, knock it off. They're just doing their job." But Vince only chuckled dismissively. "Job? They're just statues. They're not even allowed to move. What can they do if someone decides to test them?" His words sparked murmurs among the crowd. Some tourists started stepping back, sensing that things could spiral out of control. Others, however, pulled out their phones, eager to capture whatever might happen next. The tension in the air began to build. Vince stepped closer to the railing, studying Adam as if sizing him up for a fight. "Hey, soldier boy, are you even human? Or just a fancy mannequin for tourists to take pictures with?" Adam remained as still as ever. His gaze stayed focused, and his face betrayed no emotion. But Vince wasn't ready to back down. "Look at him. He hasn't even blinked," Vince exclaimed, glancing back at his friends with a laugh. "How long do you think he can keep that up?" The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. A woman with a child spoke up sharply. "Leave him alone! This is unacceptable!" But Vince wasn't listening. Enjoying the attention, he kept laughing and hurling taunts. "Come on, do something! Or are you just a statue?" Some tourists began shouting, "Show some respect! Leave him alone!" Yet Vince seemed to thrive on the energy. His confidence was unshaken, and he fed off the growing discomfort around him. Adam, standing under the watchful eyes of dozens of people and hearing the commotion, remained motionless. Yet the tension in the air was palpable. The crowd collectively held its breath, sensing that this peaceful morning could soon take an unexpected and dramatic turn. Vince Carter, towering over the crowd like a giant among ordinary people, approached the barrier, his imposing figure looming over the motionless Adam Hunt. Every movement he made radiated confidence, as if he already knew this moment would make him the center of attention. Vince removed his dark sunglasses and casually hooked them onto the collar of his black "No Mercy" t-shirt. His piercing, mocking gaze swept over the guardsman, as if searching for any weakness. "Hey, soldier boy," he called out mockingly, loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. "What would you do if I told you to move?" His voice echoed across the plaza, grabbing everyone's attention. People exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered disapproval under their breath, while others began recording, anticipating some sort of spectacle. Adam, standing as still as a statue, kept his gaze fixed in one direction, showing no reaction to the provocation. His composure, stillness, and discipline impressed some onlookers and perplexed others, but Vince wasn't the type to be deterred by silence. His smirk widened. He squinted, clearly deciding to test the young guardsman's patience to the limit. "Maybe we should test your reflexes. Or are you just part of the decoration?" He taunted, making quick, exaggerated movements with his fists directly in front of Adam's face. His clenched fists, rapidly opening and closing, danced at eye level. The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. A few voices rose above the whispers. "Stop it! That's out of line. Show some respect. They're here to serve, not to entertain you." But Vince wasn't fazed. If anything, the crowd's reactions only fueled his audacity. He took another step closer, so near now that his breath could be felt in the air. Every step he took seemed to cast a shadow over Adam. "You can't even blink, can you? Or are you finally ready to show us you're not just a mannequin?" Vince jeered, his voice brimming with challenge and his eyes blazing with provocation. Adam remained steadfast, like an unyielding rock. His face remained stoic, as though he were oblivious to the taunts. Yet, a subtle tension at the corners of his mouth and the unmoving grip of his fingers on the handle of his rifle betrayed the focus and self-control required to endure such an ordeal. "Look at him, he's not even flinching," Vince declared loudly, turning to his group of friends as if expecting them to join in his mockery. But their reaction wasn't what he'd hoped for. They exchanged nervous glances, and one of them murmured, "Vince, that's enough. This is crossing the line. You know they aren't allowed to respond, but that doesn't mean someone won't intervene." "I don't care," Vince retorted defiantly. His eyes returned to Adam. "You're here to entertain us, soldier boy, and I'm going to show you how it's done." Vince raised his hand, and the crowd collectively held its breath. He reached toward the tall bearskin hat atop Adam's head, as if preparing to touch it. His hand hovered in the air, while his smirk seemed to say he was relishing this game. Shouts erupted from the crowd. "No, don't touch him! That's the Queen's Guard. What do you think you're doing?" But Vince was deaf to the protests. His hand lingered mere inches from the guardsman's hat, seemingly debating whether to follow through. Time itself seemed to freeze as the crowd watched, holding their collective breath. Adam, as immovable as ever, gave no reaction. Then, Vince's hand wavered slightly to the side, as though he had second thoughts, or perhaps it was just another part of his act. In that moment, the tension was so thick that it felt as though Buckingham Palace itself was holding its breath. "You wouldn't even move if I stepped over the barrier, would you?" Vince continued, clenching his fists. The crowd began to split. Some edged farther away, while others remained fixed in place, phones poised to capture every moment. The air felt electric, charged with the anticipation of what was to come. Vince Carter, like a predator closing in on its prey, finally stepped over the barrier. His heavy boot landed on the stone pavement with a resounding thud. His confident strides and contemptuous glare declared that he believed he was in total control. Cries from the crowd, urging him to stop, fell on deaf ears. "Hey, soldier boy, come on, show me you're not just a statue," Vince bellowed, rolling his shoulders and stretching his arms as if preparing for a fight. His massive frame was like a monolith, and every deliberate movement screamed of impending danger. Vince threw a quick jab into the air, aiming in Adam's direction, testing the waters. The guardsman remained motionless, his serene demeanor unbroken. Yet the tension in the air climbed with every passing second. "All right, enough theater," Vince sneered, taking another step closer. "You're a royal guard, right? Then defend yourself." And then it happened. Vince lashed out, delivering a sharp, deliberate punch to Adam's shoulder. The guardsman didn't flinch, his icy gaze unyielding. But within those calm eyes, a flicker of steely determination became visible to those paying close attention. The crowd gasped. "This is too much. Somebody stop him," a tourist shouted, clutching their phone tightly. Vince, emboldened by his victory, struck again, this time aiming for Adam's torso. "Come on, move! Do something!" Vince yelled, swinging his arms and reveling in his supposed dominance. But then, Adam showed that beneath his disciplined exterior lay something far more formidable. With a sudden, precise motion, Adam stepped back, narrowly avoiding the next strike. His body moved with a calculated elegance that belied the heavy uniform he wore. Then, with controlled force, Adam extended his arm and shoved Vince firmly back over the barrier. The crowd erupted. "Yeah, that's the spirit," someone shouted. "Respect the guards," another added. Vince, stunned that his victim had responded, stumbled but quickly regained his balance. His face turned red with anger. "You can't do that to me," he snarled, advancing toward the barrier again. His fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Acting more on instinct than reason, Vince launched himself back at Adam. This time his fist came down in a powerful arc, aimed for a devastating blow. Adam tried to deflect it, raising his arm, but the sheer force of Vince's punch was overwhelming. The impact sent the guardsman sprawling to the ground. His tall bearskin hat tumbled off his head, rolling across the pavement like a discarded symbol of tradition. The crowd roared in outrage. Some shouted, "This is an attack! Call the police!" "Has he lost his mind?" Others continued filming, unwilling to miss a single second. Adam hit the stone pavement hard, his face contorted in pain. He tried to rise, but a sharp jolt shot through his right shoulder, forcing him to stop. His body seemed to betray him, refusing his commands to stand. For a moment, an eerie silence fell over the plaza. The crowd, the guards, even Vince himself seemed frozen in place, waiting for what would happen next. Vince, breathing heavily, stood over Adam, his smirk returning as though he believed he had proved some twisted point. But then, officers from the Royal Guard began to appear, moving swiftly through the chaos. Their boots echoed against the stone as they approached, their presence commanding and urgent. No one doubted now. What had started as a peaceful morning had descended into something much darker. The scene in front of Buckingham Palace reached a boiling point. Vince Carter, moments ago radiating confidence in his invincibility, now found himself surrounded by members of the Royal Guard's security team. Their precise, professional movements resembled choreography, each gesture charged with determination. Two guards, tall and powerfully built men in impeccably tailored dark suits, swiftly approached Vince. One of them barked a clear and authoritative command. "You are under arrest for assaulting a member of the Royal Guard. Lie down on the ground immediately." The crowd, which had been holding its collective breath in tense silence, erupted in noise. Cheers, shouts, and even whistles filled the air. "Serves him right," someone shouted from the back. "Respect the guards. This isn't a show," added another voice. Vince's face, previously brimming with smug satisfaction, twisted in frustration. His voice cut through the clamor. "Assault? Are you serious? It was just sparring. Come on, it's just a game." He attempted to wriggle free from the guard's grasp, his broad shoulders tensing as if preparing for another fight. But the guards were unfazed. Their grip was unyielding, their actions resolute. One officer firmly twisted Vince's arms behind his back, while the other swiftly secured his wrists with cold, clicking handcuffs. "Stay still," one of them ordered as they forced Vince to his knees. The crowd broke into applause. Phones captured every moment, while spectators shouted words of encouragement to the guards. "That's how you deal with people like him," yelled a woman in a red hat, clutching her camera. "Want a show? Here's your show," added a man holding up his phone. Meanwhile, nearby, medics were already attending to Adam Hunt. His face was pale, his usually composed demeanor strained by visible pain. His left arm hung limp, his otherwise upright posture compromised not by lack of discipline, but by the severity of his injury. One medic carefully examined Adam's shoulder, then exchanged a quick glance with their colleague. "Clavicle fracture," they concluded, speaking softly but firmly. "We need to get him to the hospital immediately." Adam gave a slight nod, clenching his jaw to mask the pain. Despite his condition, he instinctively tried to stand, but a medic gently stopped him with a hand on his good shoulder. "Please, stay still. We'll handle everything," the medic said, their voice calm yet insistent. Meanwhile, Vince, lying face down on the stone pavement, was being hauled to his feet. His bravado had completely evaporated, but he still tried to defend his actions. "You're out of your minds! It was just a joke," he yelled, looking back at the crowd, searching for support. But all he met were scornful gazes. "This isn't a boxing ring, mate," one of the guards dryly remarked as he tightened the handcuffs. The crowd erupted into approving cheers as Vince was led away. "That's how you deal with disrespectful people," shouted a man in a baseball cap. "Respect Britain or go back home," added an elderly woman with a cane. As Vince was escorted away, his once imposing frame now seemed comically insignificant. The crowd began to disperse, though phones continued recording every step of his departure. Medics gently placed Adam onto a stretcher, carefully adjusting his uniform. Despite his evident discomfort, his face remained stoic. As he was carried toward the ambulance, a tourist called out, "We're with you, sir. Thank you for your service." This moment became a powerful symbol. Even in the face of adversity, honor and resilience continued to inspire. The story of Vince Carter's assault on a royal guard spread through the media like wildfire. Footage captured by tourists quickly went viral, amassing millions of views on social media within hours. The videos showed the burly boxer throwing punches at Adam Hunt, the guard's disciplined resistance, and Carter's ultimate arrest by the security team. The online reaction was swift and overwhelming, with comments pouring in by the thousands. "How could someone be so irresponsible? These guards represent our nation's traditions." "Disgraceful. A former athlete acting like this? Shameful." "That guard is a true hero. Such composure in the face of such disrespect." Adam's display of self-control earned widespread admiration. Viewers hailed him as a symbol of British discipline, while Vince's actions were met with near universal condemnation. Mainstream media seized the story, amplifying its reach. Bold headlines adorned newspapers and news broadcasts. "Former boxing champ attacks Royal Guard at Buckingham Palace." "The red-coated hero, how a guard held his ground against an aggressor." "An assault on tradition, outrage over Buckingham Palace incident." Experts were brought on to morning talk shows to discuss the incident. Why do tourists behave this way? What motivates such disrespect for symbols of national pride? What can be done to prevent future occurrences? From his holding cell, Vince attempted to defend himself. In a brief statement to the press, he said, "I just wanted to have some fun. Nobody got seriously hurt." His remarks only fueled public outrage. Fun? Seriously? He knocked a guard to the ground and calls it fun? Disgusting! This isn't a joke. This is an attack on everything the guards stand for. He should face the harshest punishment possible. Meanwhile, support for Adam Hunt poured in. Thousands of messages flooded social media, expressing gratitude and admiration. "Your courage and professionalism are inspiring. Adam, you're a true hero. Thank you for your service." The hashtag #RespectTheGuard trended for days, with people sharing images of guards at Buckingham Palace as a sign of solidarity. What began as a disgraceful incident became a rallying point for respect and tradition. Vince Carter, once celebrated in the boxing ring, now stood in court as a symbol of disgrace. His once proud shoulders sagged, and the fire in his eyes had dimmed. The courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, and a few tourists who had witnessed the incident firsthand. The prosecution presented an airtight case. "We have clear video evidence showing the defendant deliberately attacking a member of the Royal Guard," the prosecutor declared, his tone firm. "This was no accident, no misunderstanding. It was aggression, plain and simple." Medical reports confirmed Adam's clavicle fracture and detailed the surgery and rehabilitation required. Witness statements painted a vivid picture of Vince's provocative behavior leading up to the assault. When it was Vince's turn to speak, he rose slowly, his voice unsteady. "I want to apologize. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just got carried away." The judge, an elderly man with a stern demeanor, was unimpressed. "Mr. Carter," he began, his voice measured but firm, "your actions were reckless and dangerous. You caused physical and emotional harm to a man serving his country with honor. Your behavior was not only a violation of the law, but a direct affront to the traditions and dignity represented by the Royal Guard." After a brief pause, the judge delivered the sentence. "I hereby sentence you to 8 months in prison for assaulting a public servant and disturbing public order." The courtroom erupted. Some spectators applauded, while others whispered their approval. Vince's head dropped, his hands trembling as he processed the reality of his situation. Adam Hunt, present in the courtroom and recovering from surgery, sat with quiet dignity. When asked for a comment afterward, he simply said, "I was just doing my duty. It's an honor to serve and protect what matters most to this country." Legacy of the incident. The incident sparked widespread reflection on respect for tradition and authority. Social media and news outlets continued to champion Adam's bravery and professionalism, while Vince became a cautionary tale of arrogance and poor judgment. This story served as a reminder. The Royal Guard is more than a tourist attraction. Beneath the red coats and bearskin hats are individuals of discipline and resilience, ready to uphold the honor of their nation. And though Vince Carter thought he could challenge that discipline, he learned the hard way that such tradition cannot be broken.